In this episode, we're going to be talking about increasing annuity rates and what to look for. Hey everyone, it's Chad Owen, the Annuity Sales Coach, owner of Retirement Realized Financial, Retirement Realized Agents Academy. This is my sidekick, Caleb North, and I'll tell you, be sure and go to YouTube, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, ring the bell, make comments, all that, because what we're trying to do is we're really trying to build our annuity page on YouTube, because you guys know me by now. I mean, what is this? We're at like 100 something, almost, we're getting close to 200 episodes.
Gotta be.
And my thing is always to try and help people get better and better. I mean, our podcast, whether it's Spotify or Libsyn or all those, are doing crazy, but we haven't really done a great job at building our YouTube channel.
Well, and we have the editing team put in some funny Easter eggs in that too.
Oh, interesting.
They add the kind of some humor moments to the videos that are not.
Yeah, you cannot do on a podcast.
See it on a podcast.
That is true.
So.
That is true. But do not watch it while you're driving.
Yeah, that's true. That's our disclaimer.
So, Caleb, host with the most.
Yes.
What are we talking about?
Well, we've got annuity rates up.
Okay.
We've got interest rates up. You know, we've got some annuity. There's products out there that we're looking at rates on index strategies, and a lot of them are higher than we've ever seen on certain strategies.
Higher than you've ever seen.
Well, fair enough.
No, I've been in this business a lot longer, so.
As I'm sure you can tell.
I sold my first annuity to T-Rex.
Yeah.
So. It didn't last that long, though. Dumb comment wiped everything out. But
I mean, it really is nothing. I mean, it doesn't mean anything anymore to have low or volatility control indexes with over 100% par rates on annual point-to-point strategies.
Correct.
That's like become a normal thing, almost, right? So annuity rates are up.
And if you're not, then find one that does, but make sure it's a good index, because we also got to be careful. There's a lot of these indices that you look at, and if you study the actual core of the index, you're going to go, what the heck? How was this one created? You know, and the new indexes, I don't have a problem with that. I have somebody, well, why do you use brand new indexes that are only been around 4 or 5, 6, 7 years? Do you know how many mutual funds are new and how many they got rid of 2007 to 2009? You have to adapt to modern market. And I'm not knocking them changing mutual funds and get rid of some of the dogs. Same like you get rid of some of the dog bonds. I mean, but you have to adapt to the times.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. So, and rates are up across all fixed products.
Yes,
I mean, you've got higher par rates, you've got higher caps, you've got lower spreads, you've got higher MYGA rates, you've got higher fixed account rates and FIAs. I mean, everything across the board is higher. So what you have right now is these high rates on the illustration.
Yeah.
The way that illustrations function is that it applies the current high rates to the indices over the last 10 years.
Yep.
It does not show you what the rates were over the last 10 years.
Correct.
So we're in this season where the market is down, interest rates are up, and annuity rates are up. Correct. And so they're creating these high annuity rates. You backcast that.
High historical back testing rates.
Exactly. Yeah. Because but the market was a gold mine over the last 10 years. Yeah. I mean, just absurd. Right. I think the S&P 500 total return last 10-year average was over 13% per year. That was the average total on the total return.
Until the next 2 years happen, but anyway.
Right. Yeah, and then you're really. But the point in that is you have a remarkably high performing market over the last 10 years. Yep. And we're on the brink of this correction, so to speak, right? Where things are starting to look how a lot of people have anticipated they should be looking for a little while now.
The lemmings are at the edge of the cliff as we speak.
And annuity rates are high. So you cast those high annuity rates on these illustrations over the last 10 years when most of that time period annuity rates weren't actually as high as they are.
Do you know what the story of the lemming is?
I don't.
You don't. So they'll say something along the line, don't be a lemming.
Okay.
Because what happens, and I think this is in Ireland or Scotland or some Viking type territory, there's a little creature called a lemming.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens, and I don't know why, but these lemmings, every 1, 2, 3, 5 years, one of them starts to run over the edge of the cliff, and they all follow. They all follow over the edge of the cliff. That
seems like a...
So you got to Google lemmings, and then you can see what the story is behind it.
I'll Google
Don't be a lemming. Because we see people do that right now. You know, we got all these things that are going on right now. We have all these super high historical rates, and they're all jumping to these new products that have these high rates. They're being a lemming because the reality is we need to understand the true purpose of why we present indexed annuities. The number one focal point, and I think you're going to know the answer, is what is the number one thing I focus on the indexes? Like when I present it to a client, I present the illustration to the client.
Yeah.
What's the number one thing I look at?
The worst case scenario.
The worst case scenario.
Every time.
It's like, what is the guaranteed, if the index did nothing, it made zero for the next 35 years.
Yep.
What is the worst case scenario for your income? Because here's the reality. The chances of an index actually making 9% or 6% or 7% over the next 10 years is pretty slim. Right. Can it happen? Absolutely it can. But is that something you would ever want to lead with? No. Always, always, always worst case scenario. Yeah. If your money did nothing, that's why I love having indexed annuities that have guaranteed income riders on top of stacked growth for potential index growth. Yeah. But I know, for example, we use one right now that has a small bonus of 5%, but has a 4% minimum guarantee on the income base plus index growth for the next 10 years. Yep. That's the worst case scenario, is your income growth of 4% compounded for the next 10 years. If you have anything in the next 10 years that had a remotely good year, you just see the numbers go very, very well. So that's why this product, once again, is something that it just can't be beat. And because I don't want to ever go to a client and go, hey, you know what, for 10 years you made zero, but we're trying to be, like I just went up against another agent and they're trying to say their product is better, but they put them into a product that has no guaranteed income at all other than annuitization. Trying to say they could provide income for life. They put the wrong dollar amount, and they put a single life payout for a married couple.
I thought you said it wasn't income.
You're correct. They did a single life payout on the one I was presenting.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So they totally excluded the wife.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing? Number one, wrong dollar amount, only single life payout, and you tried to do an illustration on the one I did, which they didn't even know the right indices to pick. Yeah. But the point is then they used a indexed annuity that had no income rider and made an implication of this is how much it would provide. Yeah. You can't. If income is the primary concern, do you want to plan for living and plan for dying? If it's a plan for living, then you have to have an income plan. So that's the focal point of having an income rider. But using a historical rate, trying to present this as, man, you know what, over the last 10 years, this is what it did. Does not mean it's going to do that for the next 10 years.
Well, and that's exactly what I'm trying to communicate with the idea of you've got crazy high annuity rates right now that get applied to the index strategies over a historically great 10-year period. So you have illustrated rates that are astronomically high and remarkably unlikely to actually occur. Yeah. It makes illustrations look really, really, really good. It's probably not going to be in actuality
there's a lot of
as good as that
looks. Market that way.
There's a lot of
They do. They just, their email blast is, we have an index that made 13% over the past 10 years. What? You know, or even 7 or 8%.
Right.
Now,
they don't tell you that there's a percent
I do think
7%.
Yeah, exactly. I do think 6 to 7% can be probable.
Yeah.
I really do, because the way they built the indexes nowadays, they can do that. Because if you have 2 years of zero, which if you're doing true management with your client and you're going, hey, now right now we're going to put everything into the fixed account, which makes 3%. You have to give me a call in 11 months and we're going to revisit what's going on.
Right.
Now, if I think the market's going down or it's going to stay flat, then we'll do the fixed account again. If we think it's going to go up, then we'll move in one of the indices. Now, I make this crystal clear. I'm not trying to predict what the market is. And I use this example of one of my own annuities that I own. And I said, I missed the timing on that. I did very well the year before. Then it started to tank, thinking I'd stay in the index. And instead of going to the fixed account, I know high likelihood for the next year, I'm going to be making zero on that index. So I don't know the market.
Right.
But I can tell you, off of the 3 different companies I own with annuities and the index strategies, I don't always get it right. And I tell them that.
Yeah.
But that's also why I present the worst case scenario of your index did nothing for the next 10 years.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. It's exactly why you can't sell, like we already said, and I have in my notes, don't sell on the non-guaranteed portion of the illustration. Focus on the guarantees. There are products out there that I'm sure you can probably think of by the way that I'm describing these, where you have basically no guaranteed roll-up rate.
Yep.
A lot of times you have really fat bonuses on the front end.
Yep.
And the only way the income has the potential to increase is based on index performance.
Correct.
And they a lot of times will apply a multiplier to that performance to try to create that. Here's the problem that I foresee with those types of products right now is that we are on the tail end of, again, a phenomenal last 10 years. And that's what the illustrations are looking at. And now you apply these crazy high annuity rates, par rates, cap rates, low spreads to the last 10 years of index actual performance, and you have an income illustration that looks like beautiful.
You get a pet unicorn at the end of your retirement.
And the odds of that happening, again, because we have higher rates right now than we have over, well, and I'm saying over the last 10 years. Really, I'm thinking short term, over, say, the last 3 years. Annuity rates are higher than they've been. Okay? Before that, I'm sure we're still doing better than we were.
Yep.
But the market was good back then. You're rarely going to see, because these interest rates are affecting the annuity rates, right? So you're rarely going to see, and interest rates affect the market. So you're rarely going to see crazy high, again, rarely, crazy high market returns at the same time you have crazy high annuity rates.
Well, and if you think about this, let's think of the logic. I just told you what I tell my clients to probably go into for the next year, which is what?
The fixed account.
So what does it matter what the participation rate?
It really doesn't.
It doesn't. And then if we think the market's going down for the next couple of years, which once again, we don't know, let's say we think it is, then what does it matter participation rates?
It really doesn't. It just affects the way the illustration
That's why I look at fixed rates. Now, what I am very picky about is making sure that the indexed annuity I use has quite a few different index strategy options as well as a good fixed rate.
Yeah.
So I'm not big on caps, haven't been for many, many years. I don't think caps, honestly, especially when we see the crazy ups and the crazy downs, what good is a 5 or 6% cap when the market went up 14%? You know, so now granted on the volatility control indexes, you're not going to see generally a 20 or 30% gain, but you could see 12, 13, 14% gain. You could see those, absolutely. But you have to look at participation rates and spreads, I think, are probably your best bet if you're going to use index strategies.
Sure.
But once again, the cap, the participation rate, the spread, none of that matters when the market's going down. But what would matter when you have an additional fee that's added on top of the index strategy,
and the market's
going down, because now they made zero, but let's say they have 1.5% fee taken out of that, then your indexed annuity can go backwards when the market falls because you made zero and you had the fee on top of it.
Yep.
So that's another reason why I'm not real big on fees built into an index. Plus, we sound too much like a broker, and that's just something I don't think is a good idea.
Well, generally, people are moving away from, a lot of times, they're moving away from places where they had high fees.
Think about it. If you have an income rider and you have let's just say a 1% fee, and then you have a 1% income rider fee, you did 2% right there.
Yeah.
You sound like a broker.
You sound like it.
I can't lose money when the account
Right.
value drops, but it still can be 2% less.
It's true. The other thing you've got to bear in mind is you can have clients in the same year, sometimes even in the same month, that when you look at point to points, do drastically different in their returns, right? I mean, think about the clients that purchased an annuity in January of this year.
Yeah, it's funny. I just had a client call me and goes, you know what? The S&P is up 6%. This was a little while ago. How come I only got 0? Well, because it was a volatility control index and they move it around in there. So you got 0, or I think it was 1%. They got 1 or 1.5%. And now if we had that same conversation where we're down a considerable amount, he's going to be loving that 0.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So if you have a client, let's just take January of this year, where at that point, I mean, the S&P itself was up. It was 16% higher than it is right now. Okay, so we're down 16%
as of a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, when we're recording this.
Yeah.
The difference of the starting point in the index strategies for the clients sold in January versus the clients sold now is dramatically different. So in 1 year, when reallocation statements come around, you're going to see January clients, their returns probably going to be looking different than the people sold now, because the people sold now have a lower starting point. So you got to understand the annual point to point,
unless
2 year point to point,
the January to even now, if it's still down in a year, it's still 0.
It's still 0.
Which is why my number one way I present an illustration is I highlight all over the place guaranteed values, guaranteed return, which is 0 plus whatever the income can actually grow at.
Right.
So that's why I'm a huge fan of having that combination. I'm going to say it again. I love having a guaranteed income growth for the next 10 years as far as the income roll-up rate versus nothing, with a higher potential of having a quote-unquote higher index growth when I can have the income stacked on top of the index growth.
You need to bear in mind that what you see on the non-guaranteed, the hypothetical part of the illustration is going to be almost certainly look better than what it probably will in actuality. So if you're selling from that place, I think logically you're going to end up with frustrated clients.
Well, and that's like I said, when I pick indexed annuities, I try and pick something that doesn't have the worst performance ever was 1.5%, and the best performance ever was 15%.
Yeah, it's too much.
I try and keep it within a 2% spread from the high to the low. And then, of course, I got to pick companies with very high rate integrity. How long have they? So your existing, let's say I sold a client 4 years ago. Are the rates the same? And I can honestly say with most of the companies I use, that has been the case.
Yeah.
They're not only, some of them are even higher.
Yeah.
And, but even their movements, they're not high increases, but they're not high decreases.
Right.
So it's very important that we understand rate integrity. Yeah. And most people will not talk to you about that. They're just going to tell you what the current caps, participation rates, spreads are. But they don't say, well, for existing clients, we screwed them over.
Right.
And there are some companies out there that they are known to have very high first-year rates. And then once that 2-year anniversary state comes out, they're in their second year, you're going, I don't want to talk to these people.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I've never had to have that conversation before where it was a huge drop like that.
That's good.
So,
well, I do have just 2 more things.
I figured you would.
That in this time seem like minor things, but they're actually bigger things. So when the market is down, to me, it's even more important to focus on renewals and to focus on guarantees.
Yep.
Because especially right now, when we do have back-tested illustrations that look incredible, you don't. I'm beating a dead horse again. We talked about that a couple episodes ago.
Horse is already
that
dead.
Horse is dead. But don't just look at the non-guaranteed and think that that's going to duplicate, because it probably will not. Yeah. And
even the worst case scenario, who knows?
Right.
I mean, we're in uncharted territory. Really, we are.
It's strange environment.
And I think we're, like I've said this many times, we are in the golden age of annuities. Because even when the markets do fall and interest rates continue to go up, that's going to make our fixed rates really well.
Yeah.
So
fixed rates are good. And again, par rates are high, which makes the illustrations look really, really good. Yeah. But if the market's down, like you said, that doesn't matter.
You just sounded like Donald Trump. It's going to be huge.
It's going to be huge.
It's going to be huge. Okay. What else? Do you have anything else to add?
I don't think so, but to say it again.
Thank God. I mean, whoops, what? Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Not sorry.
Guarantees are huge right now.
Huge.
Even though the index allocations on illustrations look amazing, focus on the guarantees and make sure that you are looking at renewal rates.
Yes, you want a huge year. Huge.
Yeah.
It's going to be huge. It's going to be outstanding. Huge. We're the best. Okay. Appreciate you guys' time. You have a great day. And of course, happy selling.